But today I want to discuss some common myths around introducing your baby to solids. And I want to start with the first one, which is that you need to introduce baby cereal as the starter food. Babies that are introduced to solids in the form of cereals that are very refined are higher risk of maintaining constipation and staying constipated and being more severely constipated than the babies who are introduced to seasonal fruits and veggies. You shouldn't introduce solids to get your baby to sleep through. You shouldn't introduce solids to get your baby to gain weight. Those are not good reasons to introduce solids to your baby. The only reason you want to introduce it is to let them learn how to eat. Then there's a myth that says you should introduce one type of solid at a time every week. Just do the math and just think how many weeks it's going to take you to introduce your baby to the range of fruits and veggies, and then still all your allergen foods, and then still all your grain. So it's really important that you take it step by step, but the most important thing is to enjoy the journey. I'm Kath Megaw, and this is Let's Talk Baby. I'm a pediatric dietitian, and I'm normally joined by my co-host, Dr. Jenny Rose, who's a clinical psychologist, and Sammy Hammond, who's a feeding therapist. Sadly, they can't be with me today, but today I want to discuss some common myths around introducing your baby to solids. Now, for those of you who've been following us, you know we've done a weaning journey, and we've covered a range of weaning topics, from when to introduce your baby, what to introduce your baby to, how to introduce your baby. We've looked at allergens, we've looked at cow's milk protein allergy in particular, we've looked at what utensils to use, what cups to use when your baby starts drinking water. We've even looked at what high chairs to use. So go back, have a look at episodes that are relevant to you in the stage that you're in. If you really found them useful, like them, share them with others that you think will benefit from them. But for today's podcast, I'm going to talk about some of the myths. And I want to start with the first one, which is that you need to introduce baby cereal as the starter food. Now, I'm not a big fan of introducing a very refined commercial baby cereal as a starter food. And the reason about this is your baby's little gut has been used to a lot of liquid, and now you're going to put something very solid into your baby's gut. And this has potential to make them constipated. Now, whenever you introduce your baby to solids, they are going to have a shift in their stool pattern because they're getting something solid in. And this will create a little bit of what might look like constipation, but normally it resolves within the first 2 weeks. Babies that are introduced to solids in the form of cereals that are very refined are higher risk of maintaining constipation and staying constipated and being more severely constipated than the babies who are introduced to seasonal fruits and veggies, because those have a lot of water in, they've got a lot of healthy fiber, and they are really excellent at helping food move through the gut. They're also very colorful, they're very tasty, they taste totally different to either breast milk or formula the baby was on, which is really important because when introducing solids, you want to engage in this wonderful solid experience. And you can't really do that if you've just got a bland cereal with the same taste in milk as what they're used to. So it's not really something new, it's just a different consistency. So I would really encourage you, start with your seasonal fruits and vegetables, and at the appropriate time, you can introduce your grain foods. The second myth I want to discuss is introducing solids will help my baby sleep through the night. In my experience, the only reason you should introduce solids is for developmental feeding development and to introduce solids. You shouldn't introduce solids to get your baby to sleep through. You shouldn't introduce solids to get your baby to gain weight. Those are not good reasons to introduce solids to your baby. The only reason you want to introduce it is to let them learn how to eat. Don't put pressure on solids that, when I start you on solids, now you're going to sleep through. That puts a lot of pressure on that solid meal. Or you need to gain weight. Now I'm going to give you solids. That puts a lot of pressure on the solid meal yet again. So I really would caution you, if that is your mindset around starting solids, that you wait a bit, rather correct their sleep with sleep training or with appropriate amounts of calories of milk during the day, If they're not growing adequately, also correct that by adding extra milk, so that when you introduce solids, your solid journey can be just for enjoyment and development and fun and engaging, not all that expectation on the solids. People also sometimes say introduce solids, you can help with reflux, and solids really doesn't help with reflux. Often it makes reflux worse, and that can be quite disappointing. So rather get your reflux sorted out if it's hindering your baby's feeding and enjoyment of food and their milk journey. I would definitely correct that first before introducing solids. So solids is there not to solve other problems, but only for developmental and enjoyment and engagement. Then there's a myth that says you should introduce one solid at a time, one type of solid at a time every week. So just imagine you introduce pear today, and then only a week later you introduce apple. Just do the math and just think how many weeks it's going to take you to introduce your baby to the range of fruits and veggies, and then still all your allergen foods, and then still all your grains. That's just going to take too long. So when it comes to the non-allergenic foods, so your foods that are not proteins, like your seasonal fruits and vegetables, you are going to introduce one new fruit and veggie every day. And then when they're on 2 meals and 3 meals, you can even have a new one twice a day. And that just speeds up the process of introducing them to tastes and yumminess around the solids. So you don't have to have this long delay between each new fruit and veggie. Then the other myth is babies need to have teeth before you introduce solids. And that's really not a good idea at all, because some babies only get their first tooth around 9 months. And if you're going to delay solids to 9 months, go back and look at when is my baby ready to start solids and why we start and recommend between 4 and 6 months. And that is just to recap, because your baby is ready between 4 and 6 months. You want to introduce the allergen foods to your babies earlier than 7 months so that they get exposed to the allergies, which will decrease the risk of allergies in your baby. And also you don't want to delay it beyond 6 months, because they're very receptive to try new flavors and textures early on. And if you delay it, like for example to 9 months when they've got their first tooth, they might not be keen at all to start the solid journey anymore. And that would be very sad. So you definitely don't have to wait till your baby gets teeth. And then the final myth I want to discuss is you shouldn't introduce allergenic foods like peanuts and eggs before 1 year of age. We know that is totally not grounded in science, and actually it's the contrary. We want you to introduce the peanut butters, the tree nut butters, the mushed mashed egg, and the fish, those high allergen foods, before the age of 7 months, preferably between the age of 4 and 6 months is when you want to introduce those foods to your baby, because they will protect your baby against getting these allergies. So those are our top 5 myths when introducing your baby to solids. So go ahead, enjoy the journey. And remember, as we've said repeatedly throughout all our weaning videos, it's a journey, it's not a destination. Your baby is not going to immediately just jump necessarily into loving solids. Some of them do, but some of them are more hesitant, and that is totally age appropriate and absolutely fine. So it's really important that you take it step by step, but the most important thing is to enjoy the journey. And just remember that if you have fun with it, your baby is going to have fun. And if your baby is going to have fun, they are going to love solids and they are going to want to eat. Thanks so much, and look forward to seeing you again next week on our podcast. And we will be joined by Dr. Jenny Rose, as we will be discussing some of your Q&As that we've asked some of the moms to send in. And so tune in for that. I'm sure you will resonate with some of the questions that some of the moms have sent in for us to answer. So have a lovely week, and we'll see you next week.